I found myself one autumn night in an uncomfortable and awkward position. I had just arrived in a town where I did not know a single creator. I had not a penny in my pocket, nor a corner where to lay my head. For a day or two, I kept things going by disposing of all such articles of clothing as were not absolutely indispensable. When the proceeds of my wardrobe were exhausted, I determined to set out for a place called Austria, where I knew there were some pubs and dockyard, which would offer a chance of work. When, however, I arrived there, the stir and bustle of the year were over, for it was already the latter end of October, and the place was now empty and deserted. I tramped about the wet sands, standing the water splashing at every step I took. Eagerly I scanned the ground under my feet, hoping to find some refuge that might be eatable. I had arrived at that state when I would have eaten anything. I prowled about the deserted huts and stalls, thinking how pleasant it would be to feel my hunger satisfied for once in my life. Under existing social conditions, it is so much easier to quench the hunger of the mind than it is to satisfy the hunger of the body. As one wanders about the street with their ritzy, decorated buildings, which one feels certain are just as luxurious inside as they were outside. Thought arise in one mind as one contemplated the wonders achieved by architecture, sanitation, and many other elevating and improving arts and science. One meet people warmly and comfortably clad, they are well behaved, they always make way for one anxious to the point of fastidiousness to avoid even the knowledge of the existence of beings such as we are. But thank God, the souls of the starving are often far better nourished than are those of the rich and prosperous. Such a state of affairs gives the rich many a chance of drawing witty comparison in their own favor. Evening drew on, the rain pattered down, the north wind blew in fitful gusts. It whistled among the empty stalls and slits and rattled against the boarded windows of the deserted vodka shops. The waves of the river turned to spray under the stalk of the blast as they dashed boisterously against the sandy shore. throwing their white chest high up into the air. Then, as if anxious to return to the best expanse they had just left, they just laid and leaped back one over the other. The river seems to have a presentiment that winter was near, and to be making nervous attempts to escape the icy bonds which the bleak north wind might lay upon it that a very night. The sky was dark and lowering, a cold cutting drizzle so fine that the drops were scarcely visible swept through the air. The depressing landscape which surrounded me seems sadder still for the stumps of two disfigured broken down willows and the overturned boat lying near their roots, a battered overturned boat and two melancholy old trees stripped naked by the cold wind. Everything suggested ruin, desolation, and disgue. The sky shedding endless tears give a last finishing touch to the whole mournful picture. So desolate and so gloomy seemed all around that it began to appear to me as if everything in the world, with the exception of myself, were decaying, and that very soon I alone should remain in the world, that the only living being left. I, for whom cold death might be already looking somewhere near. I was only 18 then, and what beauty there is in that age. Thus I walked about the cold, damp stand, my teeth chattering, an accompaniment to my thought in honor of hunger and cold, when suddenly, as I turned sharply round the corner of a stall, I came across a stooping figure wearing the dress of a woman. Her clothes were wet and hung closely around her. I stopped and tried to find out what she was doing, and then I discovered that she was scraping a hole in the sand with her hand under one of the market stalls. "Why are you doing that?" I inquired. Sitting down beside her, she uttered a low cry and sprang quickly to her feet. As she stood up, facing me, her large grey eyes full of terror, I noticed she was a girl of about my own age, with a very pretty face, which I regret to say was somewhat disfigured by three large bruises. The bruises took the place in symmetrical order. still had the effect of spoiling her beauty. One bruise was just above the bridge of her nose. The others consisted of two black eyes. All of them were exactly of the same size and had been evidently inflicted by an artist in the art of disfiguring people's faces. The girl stood staring at me, but the expressions of terror gradually disappeared from her eyes. She shook the sand from her hand, straightened the cotton handkerchief on her head, and she said with a slight shiver in her voice, I suppose you are hungry also. If so, come and dig for a little while. My hands are aching actually. Look there, she continued, nodding toward the stall she had been trying to undermine. In that stall, we shall be sure to find some bread and some maybe sausage. It seems this stall has not been regularly closed yet. I started digging. After some few minutes spent in watching me, she squatted down beside me and began to work as well. We grumbled away for some time in silence. It is difficult to say at this distance of time whether any thought of the evil code, any considerations of morality, or of the right of property, or of other good things which wise people tell us should ever be present in our minds troubled me at that moment. But as I desire to keep as near as possible to the truth, I fear I must acknowledge that at that time I was so engrossed with my work of determining the stall that no room was left in my mind for anything but expectation of the treasure. I hoped to discover as a reward of my toil. Evening came on a peak. The gloom, damp, cold, and raw, grew every moment more and more dense. The switch of the waves was heard less distinctly, but the rain beat louder and more intensely against the board of the stall. Not far off, we heard the night watchman stolid. Has the stall a floor or not? Inquired my companion in a low voice. Not misunderstanding, but also understand exactly what she meant. I did not answer. I am asking you if this stall has a floor or not, because if it has, there is no use in our going on digging. If we came across thick boards, what can we do? In that case, had we not better break the lock? It's a trumpery little thing, a bright thought seldom comes into a woman's head, but still, as in this case, happy thoughts do come into their minds occasionally. I always have a respect for happy thoughts and try and avail myself of them as well as I can. Acting on this principle, I feel for the lock, grabbed it a wrench, and pulled it off. Squirrels and all, my accomplice immediately stooped down and, gilding like a snake, thought the square, raised the lid of the stall. I felt for the lock, gave it a wrench, and pulled it off, screws and all. My accompanee immediately stood down and gilded like a snake. Snake, thought the squirrel, raised the lid of the stall. When there, she uttered a cry of encouragement. Well done, my brave lad. A word of approbating from a woman is worth more to me than a hymn of praise from a man, even if he be as eloquent as all of the orators. Insistent and modern, put together under the circumstances I am describing. However, I was not in such a amiable frame of mind as I am now. I paid no heed, therefore, to the girl's exclamation, but briefly and impatiently queried, "What have you found there?" Instead of replying, she began to enumerate in a monotonous voice that, that the various articles she had discovered, a hamper of bottles, some empty bags and umbrellas, an iron pail. None of these, however, were eatable, and Thai hopes were fast fading away. Suddenly she shouted joyfully, "I have found it at last! What have you found, brave? Bread, a whole loaf, only is a little damp here. Catch it!" At the same moment, a loaf of bread rolled at my feet, and my brave little friend soon stood by my side. Meanwhile, I had broken off a hunger hunch of bread and cramming it into my mouth. "Come, I say, give me a bit too. We must get away from this place at once. Where do you think we had better go?" Her searching glance tried to penetrate the gloom of the dark, damp, and stormy night. Over yonder there is an old boat turned upside down. Let us get under it. All right, come along. We made for a boat. The boat, breaking off the it and eating pieces of bread and cramming them into our mouths as well. We walked along. The rain fell over even more heavily, and the rain also the river roared rolled louder. A